And a big thank you, as always, to our sponsors of the Profiles Breakfast Series, which are Kent State University Ashtabula, the Growth Partnership for Ashtabula County, Gazette Newspapers, and Leadership Ashtabula County. So thank you all for joining us today, and it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Donny Chaplin, President of Grand River Rubber. And Donny's going to talk to us about workforce, and as you can see, the evolution of a 100% employee-owned market leader in Ashtabula County. And we're thrilled to have him here today. Grand River Rubber has really been not only a market industry leader, but also a fantastic community partner throughout the years, and has developed a reputation as not only a foremost supporter of so many initiatives and so many things here in Ashtabula County, but for having an incredible workforce and dedicated team of employees and dedicated team of leaders. So Donny, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the growth partnership and leadership, and of course Dean Stocker and Kent State asking me to come. Not much on notes, but I might glance down once in a while. Appreciate the paid attendees here, that they're sort of like the forced supporters, the paid supporters in the election in the front table, so I appreciate them. Appreciate my family coming out to support me, my wife, my daughter, my sister. So, and thank you everyone else for coming that filled the room and actually paid $12. So I appreciate that. When I had committed to giving the presentation, she never told me I needed a title. So at 5:30 a.m. one morning, I wake up to an email from Laura saying, "What's the title of your presentation?" And I said, "Well, if I actually started on it, I'd give you a title." So I'm like, so real quickly I came up with evolution of a 100% employee-owned company. No real science to that besides it maybe sounds a little catchy. But before I get started, I wanted to say I'm going to talk about Grand River. I'm going to talk about some of our products. I'll talk about our people. I'll talk about our history. But I did want to recognize Rick Sellup. He's here in the front. Joe Mesnick, I don't believe, made it this morning. But all the basis and the foundation for Grand River Rubber is in Rick Sellup and Joe Mesnick. All we're doing is carrying on what they started. All right, we may be changing a few things here and there, but we're carrying on the foundation that they laid. So I'd like to give him a round of applause this morning. Somewhat difficult to go, after I came up with the catchy slogan, somewhat difficult to go through chronological order. So for all of you that will not admit to being, Lifetime Movie Network fans, I'm going to start sort of present day, and then we're going to have a flashback, and we'll go through the history later on. So we'll go from there. And I need a clicker. That would help. Good. We should have practiced this. No, it's not me.
Oh, well, I figured out where the winner comes. Oh, our technology expert.
See, we were reminiscing about leadership up here instead of getting up here.
And there's only one button, so the one button technology has baffled us. So.
Anybody watch that Cavs game last night? You do have a point.
You need to do that every day. I'm always here to help.
You are the stand-up comedian.
There we go.
Okay. All right, I'm going to just start all over. No, I'm just kidding. I'd like to start by just telling you who we are, why we're here, what we're doing in the community. That's not good. Grand River Rubber and Plastics, we're committed to being a responsive, profitable, customer-centric company that delivers value through its products and services while offering stability and opportunity to its employee owners. We are 100% employee-owned. I'd like to talk a little bit about each of those concepts there. Being responsive, we are responsive to our employees, we're responsive to our customers, and we're responsive to the corporation as well. It's amazing the needs of the employees, and that's what Rick and Joe have instilled in myself over the years, that without our employees, without our customers, we are nothing. So we need to be as responsive as possible. We need to be profitable. Our employees need to know that. Our customers need to know that. And if you have a business and you can't talk to your customers and tell them that you need to make a profit, you may want to have another customer because you're not going to be around too long. We are customer-centric. We no longer have a list of A, B, and C customers. All of our customers are important. Some may be smaller, some may be larger, but so there is a scale, but they're all very important, and we need to meet the needs of those customers. We try to deliver value through our products and services, which we're going to talk about. Sometimes it's pricing, sometimes it's delivery, sometimes it's quality, but we try to deliver that every day. And then we have stability and opportunity for our employee owners. We have a lot of employees that just want stability. They want to come to work 40 hours a week. Sometimes they only want to come to work 32 hours a week, but they want to know that they have a paycheck every week. We also have some employees that want greater opportunity, whether that's through retirement funds, whether that's through promotions. We have 12 out of our 30 staff members right now started off on the floor. So we've provided that opportunity to our employees to work their way up within the company. Tell you about our market philosophy, how we go out to the market. Again, a lot of this is based and continues through the work that Rick and Joe started. We like to be diverse in our products and our markets. We extrude rubber products, okay? We extrude products ranging from 1/8 inch to 8 inch in size. We monitor over 20 different market segments. When one is up, one may be down, and vice versa. We have no one customer in our lathe cut product line that's over 5% of sales. So God forbid we lose a customer. Nobody wants that for their company. We should never be in a grave situation if we were to lose one customer. And then if you have a business where you have a lot of complexity, some volatility, and uncertainty, the answer for that is always diversity. So it's something you might want to think about in your business is how do you diversify a little bit more. We look for niche markets. All right, we don't want to make something that anybody in the world can make. We want to become the one or two top suppliers in the world. In our lathe cut product line, we're not quite there. We're probably number 3 in the United States. But in the markets that we serve and have chosen to serve, we are number 1. In our pale gasket line, we are number 1. And in our flat dry belt line, we are number 1. So 2 out of our 3 product lines, we are number 1 in the world. Also, we pick these markets and the products because they're somewhat a high barrier to entry. Again, not anyone's going to just come and with easy capital investment start making these products, especially at the volumes that we make them. Currently, if you can wrap your mind around this a little bit, we turn 15 million pounds of raw material into over 550 million gaskets or seals or belts every year. That's a lot of product. So how does that philosophy work for us? Well, back when Rick started in 1976, we had annual sales of $609,000. This year we'll do 45 million approximately. So that's great growth over the years. I like to tease Rick sometimes that I started in '92, and that's when the graph really starts shooting up more. Give you a little bit of insight into our customer base. Many of you will never go buy one of our gaskets. You may buy a flat drive belt, but these are just some of the customers that we work with. And I'll just scroll through these real quickly. See what you can recognize from these customers. If you're buying products from these customers, it probably has one of our gaskets on it somewhere. All righty. Talk about our lines of business real quick. Our main product line, although it's not actually our #1 in sales at the moment, is lathe cut gaskets. That's what Rick and Joe started with way back early on. It's still an area that we can grow. There's segments of this market that people are buying millions of gaskets and we don't make any, so there's great room for growth. We also make drum and pail gaskets, all right? They're dense, hollow gaskets. We don't make the plastic pails, we just make the gaskets that go into those plastic pails. And then we make flat drive belts. So if you have a Hoover, a Kirby, a Dirt Devil, Oric, any of those vacuums at home, probably 85% chance that that's our belt on that vacuum. And if you need one, you know where to find me. Our lathe cut gasket product line, if you can see this a little bit, maybe we should have turned down the lights, but a lathe cut product is extruded into a tube, and then that tube is cut into gasket. That's why it's a lathe. It's just like a wood lathe you might have at home. We spin, we cut the gaskets. That gasket happens to be gray. And I'll ask a question. That gasket is for a company called Sunbeam. Has anybody ever heard of Sunbeam? Makes the blenders. Anybody want to venture a guess for how many gaskets we make for that a year? Give me a number. Not at this table. Nobody?
5 million?
5 million, that's a good guess. 10 million. 10 million a year. That's a lot of margaritas. Yeah. In this product line, we have 15 different market segments that we monitor. Again, diversity. No one market itself is greater than 20% of the sales. We're looking at caps, fuel caps. If you have a lawnmower, there's probably our gasket on it. Couplings, oil filters, gas transfer, water transfer. We do over 250 different active raw materials every year, turning those products into lathe cut gaskets. We're producing over 1.5 million pieces per day. Now talk a little bit about innovation and doing things differently. In this product line, and maybe you can reference your company or your business, we've had 3 evolutions of extrusion. Again, we're extruding rubber product. When we first started, we had a 4-man crew extruding rubber tubes. Over the years, we went to a new type of extrusion where, again, we're extruding that same rubber tube, went to 2-man crew. Here recently, in the past 3 years, we're extruding that same rubber tube with 1 man, all right? Annual savings in labor, over $250,000 a year in labor savings on those evolutions of extrusion. So when you talk about innovation, it's not always talking about doing things completely differently. It's talking about doing the same kinds of things you're doing differently. Our drum and pail gasket line, again, they're dense rubber products, they're tubular. We make gaskets for anywhere from 1 to 55-gallon drums, all right? All these products are FDA compliant, FDA materials. I don't really think you'd want to eat them, but they are FDA compliant. We have a lot of in-house built automation in this product line. When Joe Mesnick first helped us start producing these gaskets, he used, you talk about innovation, he used a corn plucker that he found at the farm to separate each of those gaskets from each other. And we still do that today in some sizes of product, but we probably need 3 times the amount of people, so we do have a lot of in-house automation. Right now we're producing over 800,000 pail gaskets a day, so if you can picture that in your mind, there's a stack of pails there. There's at least 800,000 plastic pails every day used in primarily the U.S., although we do export some every day that we're making those gaskets for. Our flat drive belt line, we own about 85% of the flat drive belt market, and we're pushing, seeking opportunities to have 100% of that market. Again, if you have, Bissell is the largest producer of vacuums. If you have a Bissell, that's who we have. Producing over 100,000 belts a day. Proud to say that we export 50% of our flat drive belt product to China. We do not buy product from China, we export to China. And the reason why is material technology. We have a formulation that for a 25-cent belt, the Chinese can't meet the requirements. So I'm proud to say that, and people ask, why don't you just move your production to China? I'm like, well, because then the Chinese are going to steal your technology. Once it's cured into a belt, it's ready, it's a lot harder to get that formulation. If you take raw material over there, they'll just back engineer it and take that technology. So we have no plans on producing in China. Again, doing the same thing differently. Up until a couple of years ago, we would bulk ship everything. Now if you actually walk into a Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, even Giant Eagle has some, and you see belts in a package, those are our belts, and we're probably doing the packaging in-house right here in Ashtabula. Talk a little bit about our key events in history, okay? We're going to take a step back, see some of that evolution, talk a little bit about innovation and how we've changed things over the years. Again, we're not going to look at every item here, but in '76, Rick Sellup, Bob Jessup, and Steve Knowles bought the division of Geneva Rubber that became Grand River Rubber. In '78, they purchased a lot of lathe cut machinery to build production and produce more lathe cut gaskets. It took, and I didn't highlight it there, but Joe was added in 1982 as a fourth partner. So for about 7 years then, primarily focused on lathe cut gaskets. In '85, we added the drum and pail product line. Started making those, extruding them, again, same extrusion process, just producing different product. Did it the same way for 6 years. And took Joe until 1991 to start doing that a different manner. Okay, to come up with a new idea, a faster idea on how to separate them and boost our production. And without that, I don't know where we'd be today. 2001, we took that basis of producing lathe cut that was started way back in '76. We finally used that technology to move into a different market. It's the same type of process, but again, the material is the key. And we entered the flat drive belt market, and then the year later, we started shipping to China. In 2006, again, we did things a little bit differently. We had grown the vacuum sweeper market or the flat drive belt market so much that it was starting to hurt our lathe cut business, and we were pushing out lathe cut orders, so we decided to do things differently, and we expanded into another part of the building, and we started producing those belts into a cell. In our old process, we would make everything sort of batch from 4 departments, one department to the other. In this department, again, we're making the same product, but every employee is cross-trained and they rotate jobs either daily or weekly. So we have great flexibility in that production area. Unfortunately, not everything's a win for us, okay? I'm not all about just saying everything's great. We entered a market in 2007, same technologies. We extrude a product. This is rubber tubes for wastewater treatment plants. And we did a great job. We were the best supplier for our process that they ever had. They told us that. But they found a different process that made them way less expensive. So it lasted for about 3 years, and we did the best we could, but we didn't want to get too far out of our niche processes, so we exited that market about 2010. In 2011, we did become 100% employee owned, all right? Rick and Joe put a lot of trust into us. They held all the paper. We have no bank debt from our ESOP. And I'm happy to say in February of 2017, they will be fully paid. So we're on schedule. But they put a lot of faith in us to pay them and take the notes for that. And it's been quite good for the company. In 2012, again, we did things a little bit differently. Since 25, 30 years, we had made white product alongside black. Could you imagine that every single day, operators trying to keep white product white while they're running black product right next to it? It was quite a hassle. So we, again, went to a cell concept where we produce only white gaskets. We now have our FDA compliance where you'll see guys wearing hairnets and other things to go along with some requirements of the FDA and other requirements that they have in the market. And it's really been good for us to solidify that business with our customers. We did 3 acquisitions since 2011. Never in the history of the company have we done an acquisition, but we've done 3 asset acquisitions. Organic growth is hard right now. There's always roadblocks, whether it's material development, whether it's passing other requirements that the customer may have. So we've been able to grow just a little bit through 3 acquisitions, 2 in our lathe cut line and 1 in our belt division. And then again, as I mentioned, ESOP debt's going to be fully repaid in 2017. Talk a little bit about a corporate innovative mindset. Talk a little bit about what Rick and Joe had instilled in us, what I'm trying to pass along to our people, and some of my thoughts on just leadership and what it means to run the company. doing the same thing differently. Again, a lot of companies, we're involved with a lot of different organizations, and I hear some people talk about innovation. They get scared because they think, am I really being innovative? That's all it is. It's what we do every day. And so when we talk about are we really being innovative, every single day I think our staff is trying to find a new idea, a method or device to do what we do safer, more productivity, and take cost out of the product. We listen to the workforce and meet frequently. That's important. We have meetings with the workforce, sorry about that. We have meetings with the workforce monthly, and then actually our product line managers in 2 of our 3 product lines, we meet weekly for a half hour. It doesn't have to be long, but get your people together, make sure those projects are moving along, and it really goes a long way. Otherwise you turn around, you got 3, 4, 5 months going by, and you're not really accomplishing what you need to accomplish. We talk a lot about customized equipment versus purchased equipment. When you need to go out and you want to get into the next best thing, what for your company, historically, we've customized a lot of equipment. Right now, we're finding out that we can purchase some equipment that we need. So you need to find that balance for your organization. I like to look at equipment and processes outside of our core business. We can look at rubber extrusion equipment or cutting equipment all day long. We know what that is, all right? But what are the processes going on in the plastics industry and the steel industries, other areas that we might be able to use? We're actually utilizing a piece of equipment that we bought from Europe that, to our knowledge, is not being used in the United States at all for the purpose that we're using it for. In fact, the company, before they would sell it to us, made me sign a waiver that if it didn't work, it was on me, not them, because they were a little unsteady. So, and it's running great. It's allowed us to go to that one-man crew. We save a lot of material every year by running that equipment. But again, it was outside of our norm. I like to encourage you to revisit past ideas. Continuous improvement and new technologies. Timing is everything. You may have employees that think of a great idea 5 years ago, and it just quite didn't fit whatever they wanted to buy or whatever they wanted to implement. But every other company's trying to improve as well. And if you go back and revisit that thought, you might find that it works now. I have a mantra. These guys may not like it sometime. It's sort of new for me in the past 3 to 4 years, but I have a mantra that I believe but verify. If you have employees that are telling you something and they're going by memory, don't always take their word for it, because everybody's getting older. Their memory's not what it was. Tell them, okay, show me what you're saying. You know what? If they come back to you and they're 100% right, you give them a pat on the back and say, good job, you're doing what you're paid for. But more often than not, I get a little something. And maybe it's not completely right or completely wrong, but there's something different that if you wouldn't have really dug into it, you wouldn't have known. So I have this mantra, believe but verify. My other corporate mindset, and I've shared this with our executive staff, is from a leadership standpoint, and I wanted to talk about leadership a little bit, is you can run your organization like this. You can be the boss. You can be pointing people in the right direction. You can be on top of the business, and you got your little workers there, pulling on the business for you, all right? That is not the kind of company that we are, all right? I don't want to be like that. I don't want our managers to be like that. This is how I want to be. This is how I want our managers to be. They're going to be the leader. They're not going to just be the boss. And for these guys, for better or worse, they'll tell you, I'm not in my office. I'm making the rounds. I'm seeing what's going on firsthand. And from a corporate standpoint, when they tell me something, I'll have verified it myself. I'll have seen it myself. And I think it's a great little graphic there that you can be the boss. You could be getting some stuff done. I'm not saying that you can't. But this is really how I think an organization should be run, with the leaders at the front leading these other employees that also, by the way, want to go in the right direction, right? They're not fighting me on it. But they need to see me out there being the leader. So what are those results of innovation? And I have no idea what cell range means, but that's not me, I don't think. But anyways, never seen that. But anyways, we're going to go with it. So the first 2007, I went back 10 years. That is 158 employees at that point, 2007. 158 production employees. They produced about 510 million pieces that year. Each employee produced about $225,000 worth of product. All right. Then, of course, all these cell ranges that say that was our employment for the year. Move up to 2016. What have we gotten? It's only 2 more employees. The chart is production pieces going up, but in 2016 we only added 2 more employees, production employees. We went from 158 to 160. Produced 570 million pieces. Each employee is now producing $281,000 a year. You say, well, that doesn't seem like much, 225 to 281. It's increased annual revenue with 2 employees of over $9 million. That's a pretty big number in my book. All right, and that's the results of what Rick and Joe started, what we're continuing to implement, and we'll continue to implement moving forward. I'd like to talk about our community involvement a little bit. We are actively involved in all these organizations at one level or another. Our employees are so giving. We pay them pretty well. I'm not going to say that we don't, but they're very giving when we come to ask them for donations for things. For Civic Development Corporation this year, we were first in total employee donations. United Way of Ashtabula County, we were third in total employee donations. I'll tell you a quick story. While Rick was still president, he was taking March off once in a while and going down to Florida. We had a guy that had stage 4 brain cancer. And so usually with employees, we let an employee say to us, hey, could we take up a collection? And so Rick was gone, so they asked me. I said, sure. And then they say, well, can you match it? So, okay, let me think about that. So Rick's always matched. So, okay, I'm going to go with that. That's the right answer, right? So we're going to match. At the end of the week, where we sometimes get donations of $2,000, $2,500, $3,000, the employees had donated over $12,000 to this employee that came up with cancer. So I had to make a phone call to Rick. Guess what I promised? Guess what I promised? And you know what? He had no problem with that. You know, it is what it is. We're employee owned. We're going to match it. And that employee got about just under $25,000 total to help him and his family during that time. But we have the most giving, and it starts with the leadership. It's what we've been ingrained in us. It's what we're going to continue to do as best we can and go from there. We'll talk a little bit about the ESOP Trust in 2011. I don't know if you guys are interested in this. I know some maybe from the leadership group were interested. So in 2011, Rick and Joe sold their shares of the company to the employees. We went all in right out of the gate, 100% employee owned, but the shares are allocated over 6 years. So all the employees will be getting their 6th allocation of shares here coming forward. Because we're unionized, and also because we wanted to recognize the employees that helped grow the company, to go from, some of them have been there since 1976 all the way till now. Most ESOPs allocate shares by salary. A top salary person has the most shares. But we wanted to recognize those other things. So we only allocate 70% of our shares based on your salary. You may be older, you may have been there 30 years and you want to be the janitor. You don't want to, just physically can't do it. You're going to get 30% share of shares that go out by seniority. So it really helped recognize those people that have been there over time. And I think, again, that goes to show the type of company that we are. We do have an ESOP committee that oversees the ESOP Trust. Again, being unionized, how do we do that? Well, we have a committee of 4 union and 4 non-union people. When Rick and I talked about it way back, we made it an even number, because now management shouldn't override the union and union shouldn't override the management. This is not about either one. This is about the ESOP Trust and what's best for the ESOP. Our share value has increased over 87% since 2011. All right? There was a time a year or so ago I had to tell Rick and Joe, no, you can't renegotiate. Yeah, your deal is fixed. But they didn't want to either, but they're just so happy for us that our share value is up 87%. The union in an ESOP environment. I get this question almost everywhere I go to any meetings, why do you have a union? And I said, that's not a question for me to answer. That's for them to answer. If they don't want a union, that's up to them. But only 4 to 5% of ESOPs are unionized. All right, so it is a little uncommon when we go into negotiations in the fall of 2017. In some cases, they are negotiating against themselves, so they're going to have to watch that. What do we try to do to offset that? We share information for a larger picture view. We've never hid anything from the employees really, but they see financials. They know quarterly if we've met our bank covenants. They know when we're struggling, and we're just giving them that information as much as we can so they understand what's going on at the organization. We have a state of the company meeting every spring, and we just lay it all out on the line for them. Here's what we're working on. Here's what happened good. Here's what happened bad, and here's where we're going for the following year. And then we don't fight what is in writing. We have a union contract. It's what we agreed to. There's no sense having hard feelings just because you don't like it. It's in writing, so live with it until the next contract time is up, and then we'll move forward with a different contract for 3 more years. But we don't want to just have strife because we're fighting something we don't like. If it's in writing, we go with it. All right? Any questions? I have 4 minutes to spare. Yes, sir.
Donnie, do you purchase any raw material, any color from Chrome Flow?
Not directly. If they're adding any colorants to products that we buy, we don't mix any raw material ourselves. So if for some reason they're providing colorant into the raw material, our supplier would have that. So I don't know directly. Okay. Yes, sir.
I wanted to thank you first at Grand River for your support community. Real, always tremendous. And I wanted to tell you too, when I was getting ready to go to seminary, I worked in a plastics factory on the extrusion line.
Okay.
And when that stuff starts flowing, it has to go through shapes, and it hardens as it does. So we were there with our hacksaws, and you had to leap in and start cutting off pieces because the plastic just keeps pouring out of this thing. So give them a pat on the back, would you?
Yeah.
That
Yeah. We're sort of short-handed in the summer. Are you interested in coming? You want to come out of retirement?
He only works on Sundays.
Oh, it only works. Yeah. Well, we try not. Yeah. Yeah. We try not to do that, but yeah. Yeah. God probably doesn't like that. Yes, sir.
What's your biggest change employee-wise since you become an employee, especially with the union?
It's been a little bit of a challenge. Jerry, who's at our Grand River table, just is doing some work with some of the leadership people, and I saw in his report that he did that, and it's 100% right, is that there's not this huge change because we had a great relationship before. We haven't had strikes. We have a case here and there over many years go to arbitration, and the last one we had was on an employment issue with the termination, so it wasn't even really contractual. So we have a great relationship. I think the hiccup now is I think you do have a union committee that wants to sort of show their worth and why they're needed, and so that probably maybe creates more strife than what we would have had pre-employee ownership. All right, because again, they're taking some smaller issues sometimes and making them a little bit bigger. And when Jason and I deal with that and our supervisors, it's like, hey, this shouldn't be that big a deal. Let's cooler heads prevail. But again, they're trying to prove themselves. Share value is really starting to catch on with people. When they see their statement every year, we have to do evaluation for the company every year. And when they see that share value going up, it's turning into real dollars. In July of this year, we had 5 retirees or people that left the company that were vested. We paid over $240,000 to those employees, and we don't even have the debt paid off yet. So, I mean, it's a big number for them, so it's starting to catch on. As time goes on, Rick and I work within my office Monday, we just talked about that. There are ways with an ESOP where you can start rewarding employees more short-term through profit sharing and things like that, and then there's a balance that we want to have, whether it's that or more into their retirement. But that will continue to catch on. Yes, sir.
Are you hiring currently, and what is the biggest challenge that you're finding with new hires when you are?
We have 6 open spots. This year was not a good year, quite honestly, from an employment standpoint. We started out needing 10 employees for production in January, and by March we needed 14. So we went backwards, and we never caught up. Drug tests are an issue. Actually, people that really want to work Our average shop floor worker makes about $52,000 a year before benefits. Okay, that doesn't include 401k contribution, anything into their ESOP, health benefits, anything. So when you can't get people to work, we joke, and we joke probably too much, that they don't really want to work 40 hours. They want to work whatever they need to pay their bills, and that's it.
That rate of pay is without overtime? That's just a 40-hour regular work week?
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah, it probably averages with some overtime. And there's a broad range there. We have people that work overtime in production that's made almost $90,000. So it's a great place to work from a wage standpoint. But when you're posting a Sunday, talk about Sunday, you know, God forgive us, but we post Sunday to work, and you're talking about $70 an hour, and out of 160 employees, you're struggling to get people to sign up. You need to fill your labor force somehow, and that's exactly what our strategy is for next year. We're putting on an addition in the spring. We're building new equipment because we want to get out of that position where we have to rely on the employees to work overtime. We don't want to eliminate jobs. That's not the point. Any of those improvements that you saw over the year, the expansions, the new extrusions, going from 4 people to 1 on an extrusion line, nobody lost their job. Nobody ever lost their job. Yes, ma'am.
Donnie, you and I have talked a number of times about the age range of your workforce, and you are one of a very few companies that have long-term employees. Tell us a little bit about those statistics and how that's going to affect you.
Now you're putting me on the spot. So over the next 10 years, I think we have at least 40 that are going to retire out of our manufacturing force. Our concern is, right now it's very I shouldn't say labor intensive, meaning, you know, it's just like hard labor, but it's physical labor. I mean, we actually have some of the older people now that say, hey, why don't you work overtime? And it's like, well, because if I just worked 8 and I give you another 4, I'm going to be worthless tomorrow. And they're not joking, that it's hard work, and I understand that. But we're trying to balance that. We cannot get to a stage where people are 60, 62 years old and they're going into some other inspection department and just become a cost. So that's also part of our strategy, where we're working on value-added work that they can do where they still get, you know, fair pay, they're still getting their 401k benefits, but it would actually provide a pool of jobs for people that maybe are going to be between that 60 to 65 range that aren't ready to retire. That's part of why we started doing the bagging of the belts. And that's a job that, well, if you can't do that job, then you probably shouldn't even be working. But if you can't, you know, extrude rubber products all day, you could probably do bagging. So we are definitely conscientious about it and trying to make sure that we have provisions, because right now a lot of that work is like inspection, and hopefully we're not producing enough bad product to provide jobs for all those people. Yeah. Anything else? Well, I really appreciate the great turnout, and if you do have any other questions in the future, just let me know.
Excellent presentation. And you know, hearing a story like this about one of a local company that is an industry leader, you know, it really inspires all of us, because you're not only seeing things from that point of, wow, you know, these jobs that are available, what are they producing and how are they doing it so incredibly well, but you're also hearing the story of how are we supporting the community around us. And I know that as I was sitting here listening, I was thinking about, you know, we always talk a lot about shopping local and supporting local products. And it really made me think, gosh, when you're purchasing, for example, a belt replacement for your Bissell vacuum cleaner, you have an opportunity to continually support local jobs and a local company. So looking at it from that big picture view, it's really amazing. And it's amazing to think about how a company here in Ashtabula is recognized worldwide, you know, internationally and beyond. And if that doesn't inspire you, you know, to really think about, wow, we have a lot of pride here in the community. I couldn't think of a better story. It's amazing. So thank you so much for being here with us today and for sharing this great story. I'd also like to take a moment and let everyone know, you'll watch your inboxes, for we've got an exciting lineup going forward into the new year for our Profiles Breakfast Series. We do not have a Profiles Series on in January. That typically falls on the first or second day of the year, and everybody's getting back into the swing of things. And want to say it, but sometimes it is weather related as well. So think a little bit about that. But I'd also like to take a moment on behalf of the Growth Partnership for Ashtabula County and say a thank you to Don Yanone for his time and service here within our community and the strides that he's made in moving the organization forward and in economic development here in Ashtabula County. And to also introduce and give a very warm welcome to our new Executive Director, Greg Myers. Greg, if you wouldn't mind standing for a moment, and welcome. And we're really excited for everyone here to have the opportunity to meet with Greg and to hear more about, kind of the plans and the goals for the future with the organization. A big thank you to the team that worked so hard on that process, led by James Mayer, and also without the steering, direction, and expertise of Holly Mayernick, we wouldn't have been able to do that as well. So a big thank you to everyone, and a thank you to everyone here in the community for being here today. And thank you, Donnie. It was an excellent presentation. Happy holidays.